act and have had a break which has multiplied the 10 minutes to I don't know what extent. And in between, a lot of things have happened, including the announcement of the election results, which is still on. Well, life trudges on. And when the elections began, the first phase, it seemed that the 2nd of May was so far away, if you go by the timeline. And in between, if I consider what I have done on my academic and personal levels, well, I would say not much. Because what happens is you want to do a lot of things, you end up doing so little that you are accountable to yourself for being unable to live up to your own expectations. So, given this timeline between the first phase of election and 2nd of May, in this entire very long period, on a personal level, I haven't done much. Understand what I've been doing during the last 1 year. Not much of a contribution to my own academic interests, which would have made me satisfied in some way or the other. So a year plus lost is a year plus gone. And if you go by tradition and the individual talent, well, time past will never come back, but it will have an impact on the time, because what I have not done, in keeping with T.S. Eliot's tradition and the individual talent, there he talks about what is done, what is contributed. But if you look at it from the other side, what you have not done, but you could have done, this thing of the past contributes to that emptiness, which is, I think, larger than the fruitful work which we do. So, nevertheless, if you think in a positive way, I think it's good, because even if you are not able to, your positive thinking will make a positive contribution to whatever contribution you are able to make to any kind of good work. And that also counts, and that will be your individual talent and your individual contribution. On that note, then, we come to Girish Karnad, because Girish Karnad had once told me, I remember I was at the dentist's and I just called him up because people were actually throwing stones at his residence, because these were very so-called self-proclaimed Kannadigas who were very much against sharing the waters of the Kaveri river, which actually passes through Karnataka and then enters Tamil Nadu to give up its contents to the Bay of Bengal, to surrender in a way to the Bay of Bengal, whatever it has been carrying across these states. And the Kannadigas, because they have the upper hand, they said, first we will use up all the water and then we'll see if anything remains, it will be for Tamil Nadu, which meant that the amount of irrigation that was going on in Karnataka would actually run the Kaveri river dry, and Tamil Nadu agriculture and the rest of the essentials of life dependent on the Kaveri would be very strongly hit. So Girish Karnad said that for the sake of mankind and for logic, Tamil Nadu should get a certain amount of water, maybe less, but should not be deprived of water. So the people of Karnataka said, you are against our state, you belong to our state, etc. So some of these very, very radical persons went and threw stones at his residence. So I rang him up when I heard this over the news to find out, and then he shared another piece of information with me. He said, I have had such a harrowing experience, which I would like to share with you at some later time, and I plan to write a play on that harrowing experience. Frankly, it was something on the personal level. It had nothing to do with these stone throwing. Maybe it was related, but it was not directly connected. And later on, when I asked him, sir, you have to be polite with a person of his stature. So he said, yes, when I write the play, I will let you know. Frankly, I don't know whether he has even written a draft of that play. And if he hasn't, or whether he has documented that personal experience, which he has not shared with me after that. So then, coming back to creativity, what I want to say is, you have these 13 plays by Girish Karnad at hand, but he had enough material in his knowledge and experience, which would have enabled him to write maybe at least another 3 or 4 very good plays. Now, as far as I know him, he wrote one play at a time. So, after crossing to Talikota, which he had just given to the publisher, and it was about to be published, he passed away. I really don't know whether he had started thinking or writing about the next play and whether it would have anything to do with this harrowing experience about which he spoke to me and about which he wanted to write a play. So, sometimes I believe what happens is that when a person is writing something, it is not only what he is writing which is important, but other lesser experiences which consciously or unconsciously enter the writing process. So you will find that when a creative artist is really a very talented person, a genius, say of the level of Rabindranath Tagore, when they say something, there are so many other implications in that one thing which they are saying obviously, which makes these pieces of creative writing applicable to various situations, to various attitudes, to various emotions, through various ages, amongst various people of different age groups. So they adopt a universality of their own nature. Frankly, I would not place Girish Karnad on the same level as Rabindranath Tagore. He is great, but Tagore is a phenomenon. So, no comparisons intended. But then, in his own way, Karnad has also done something like this, obviously to a lesser extent. I say this with full responsibility after a reading of or being brought up in a Tagorean milieu and a reading of Girish Karnad's works. He is good, he is great, but again I say Tagore is a phenomenon. And some people cannot be compared with. So it's like that. With this in mind, then, we must also not forget that a creative artist always aspires towards Shakespeare, Rabindranath Tagore, Tolstoy, Maxim Gorky, in the way in which they have been able to express themselves. This is a fact. This is a person's dream. It's not a challenge, it's a dream to be able to say a lot of things within very little space. And I would say, in that way, Hayavadana is tremendously successful for a younger playwright. You must not look at Hayavadana from Girish Karnad's 81 years age. You must look at Hayavadana, which he writes in around, say, the English translation comes out in around the 70s, the early 70s. When he was, how old was he? 30 plus, around 34, 35 years old. So you can imagine, if you have relations of the same age, that at that age, Karnad was, I must say, very matured in order to be able to express such a lot of things. He was not just bringing folk theatre to the urban stage. He was not just writing a play which had the Yakshagana form of presentation, but not the typical Yakshagana model of presenting myths and legends to the audience, because an urban audience would not be interested, in looking at just a myth or a legend. They would want something more. So the story itself had to be different, for which he goes to the transposed heads. So there are a lot of not only experimentations, but there is a lot of conviction that I think I can work with this. And by then, actually, Girish Karnad had the first-hand experience of working, writing for, and performing with the Madras Players, which had a tremendous impact on his career as a man of the theatre. With this, then, we move on to the second act. The white curtain is removed. The Bhagavata says, he begins with a question. What? Obviously, what? The what is there is in your mind too. What is going to happen to these three? To the two men with each other's heads transposed, and this woman whose wife is now she going to be. What indeed is the solution to this problem, which holds the entire future of these three unfortunate beings in a balance? So, the presentation is somewhat in a semi-comic manner. You may take it casually. I mean, what fun! One man with another man's head. And what's going to happen next? There is a tendency, therefore, to push the woman to the margin in order to enjoy the fun with this new kind of thing that has happened, which is a rarity in human existence. But the fact is, the actual crisis is that of the woman. Although you may say that it is her own making, no doubt about it, but still it is a crisis. So then, way back in the ages, that is what the Bhagavata always does, fall back on the Puranas, the epics for reference. And what is there is to be held as the model. So they are all paradigms. They are all models for us to follow. সেই জন্য আগেকার দিনেও বলেছিল, বাবা কি সুন্দর জামাই হয়েছে রে, বর এলেই সব বর দেখতে দৌড়বে। এখন সেটা কমে গেছে, কারণ সবাই ইন্টারনেটে তার আগেই বর কনে সবাইকেই প্রায় দেখে ফেলে। কিন্তু আগে তো সেটা ছিল না, বর এলেই সব দৌড়তো বর দেখতে, এবং সিনেমাতেও সেটা দেখবে কোনে একা বসে আছে, সবাই বেরিয়ে চলে গেল এটসেট্রা। সেই সময় হয়তো কোনে পালিয়ে গেল বা সামথিং। সো দ্যাট ওয়াজ ইনাফ ওকেশন। এখন সেটা সম্ভব নয়। তো সব বর দেখতে গেল, এসে বললো কি সুন্দর বর হয়েছে রে। তো তুলনাটা কার সঙ্গে হবে? পাড়ার কোনো ফর্মার জামাই? নো। কার সঙ্গে হবে? অবভিয়াসলি রামের মতো বা উত্তম কুমারের মতো। দ্যাট ওয়াজ another paradigm by that time. উত্তম কুমার was something, you know, he was something like a myth. উত্তম কুমারের মতো দেখতে জামাই মানে এর থেকে ভালো জামাই আর হয় না। So these myths are created in society because we love to have these myths as a sort of you can say inspiration for life to go on, which would otherwise be very mundane, very monotonous. So this is the thing. So what model? What is the model that we will look up to? When King Vikrama was ruling the world, shining in glory, like the earth's challenge to the sun, he was asked the same question by the demon Vetala. Ekhon Vetal to thik demon chilo na, demon bolte kirokom ekটু monstrous বোঝায়। বেতাল তো অ্যাকচুয়ালি তাল বেতাল, ওই গাছে ঝুলে থাকা একটু ভূতের মতো ব্যাপার, আত্মা, প্রেতাত্মা। Anyway, and the king offered a solution even without, as it were, batting an eyelid, to show how wise her ruler, King Vikramaditya, was. But will his rationale, because the story had ended there, King Vikramaditya, without batting an eye, keeping the patriarchal model in mind and the code of ethics meant for a pativrata woman, would have said she will go with the man with the head of Devadatta, because the head is the social identity of the man, the body doesn't matter. Simple solution, the story would end there. But this is just the beginning of part 2. What have we got in store for us? So by this, Girish Karnad is actually making it very clear to even an urban audience, many of whom know their Betal Panchabhinshati or Katha Sarit Sagar, that this story, if borrowed from the Katha Sarit Sagar, is not going to stop with the ending of that story in the Katha Sarit Sagar. It is going to go beyond. That is why Thomas Mann. But will his rationale, logical answer, backed by the sacred texts, all of them regarding Pativrata-dam, appeal to our modern implied audience? The future pointed out by the tongue safe inside the skull is not acceptable to us. The tongue is safe in the skull. You cannot cut off a tongue that easily. We must read the forehead, which Brahma has disconnected from the entrails. Entrails, the rest of the body, the digestive system, all the inner organs. They have all been kept apart from the head. So the head is different. The entrails are the same for nearly all human beings, but each head is different. So the head is the best. We must unravel the net on the palm disclaimed by the brain. The net on the palm, palmistry. We must unravel the secret of the future that is there in the palm. We must plumb the hidden depths of the rivers running under our veins. Yes, that would be the right thing to do. So, our three unfortunate friends went to a great rishi. Rishis are the person who can see the future because of their knowledge and experience. They can predict which way things will go. They are like the great chess players. A chess player can almost see what will be the end of a game of chess, because every movement can generate a multiple number of movements. So then you will have to foresee that the one movement which you make on the chessboard, how far it can go in order to ensure a win for you. That is why you will see people keep staring at the chessboard without making a single move. Actually, they are mentally making all the moves. So that is what a rishi does for life and its movement. They can make mental movements and foresee the future. Something which we, with our little knowledge, little experience, and too much of attachment, too much of desires. I want this. The moment that creeps in, your ability to look into the future impartially is nipped in the bud. That is something which the rishis have been able to overcome. So then, the rishi, in search of a solution to their problem, and the rishi, remembering perhaps what Vikrama had said, that the head is the determining factor, gave the solution in a loud, sonorous voice. So the Bhagavata now seems to impersonate the rishi. As the heavenly Kalpavriksha is supreme among trees, so is the head among human limbs. Therefore, the man with Devadatta's head is indeed Devadatta, and he is the rightful husband of Padmini. The three characters who had frozen in the previous scene or act spring to life. Devadatta and Padmini scream with joy and move to one corner of the stage, laughing and dancing, because Kapila has now got to make a soliloquy. Kapila, broken-hearted, drags his feet to the other corner. Devadatta, embracing Padmini. My Padmini, the body is that of Kapila. My lovely Padmini. So who is guiding whom? The head, the body, or the body, the head? Very difficult to say in this case. My king, wow. My master, wow. Devadatta. My little lightning, the light of my joy, the flower of my palm, my celestial bodied Gandharva, connects this story with that of Hayavadana. The fascination with something which one cannot usually get in life. She has been able to get it. Just as that princess of Karnataka was fascinated by that brilliant and strong horse, so was Padmini fascinated by the strong body of Kapila. That princess got the horse because she was determined enough to marry no one else but the horse. But Padmini had to abide by the norms of society. So her desires would have remained unfulfilled if this transposition did not take place. But once it has, you can understand how extremely surprised, taken completely unawares, and glad she is for what has happened. My sun-faced Indra, my queen of Indra's court. They don't know where to end. If you have gone as far as Indra, that is the limit, because Indrer Shabha is the most glamorous of all Raj Shabhas you can ever conceive. So if he is Indra and she is Indrani, then there is nothing more to add to it. caressing his shoulders. Caressing his shoulders, she is feeling this body, which she wanted to feel with her hands but couldn't. Now that she has it, she is impatient to spend some private moments with this body, which she had been craving for. Come, let's go quickly, where the earth is soft and the green grass plays the swing. The same thing will happen in the fire and the rain, and what it triggers off after that. Let us, where the banyan spreads a canopy and curtains of the skies, in the privacy of a natural bower, where we can spend some quality time in each other's company without any disturbance. Padmini is expecting a baby, don't forget that. What a wide chest. Whose is it? Kapila's. What other canopy do I need? So this is the great canopy that I can think of. My soft swaying Padmini. This is not Devadatta. This is Kapila's body praising Padmini. What other swing do I want? Because had it been Devadatta's head dictating these words, then he was accustomed to this body of Kapila, Padmini's. He wouldn't be saying these words. So what he is saying is now being directed by the body, making you question whether the Uttamanga always directs the rest of the body, or when physical passions are in question, the head is completely subservient to the demands of the body. These are things which, therefore, you see, Girish Karnad is just implying through the dialogue and allowing the discerning section of the audience to understand that there is more to this than meets the eye. My Devadatta comes like a bridegroom with the ornament of a new body. Manly laugh. And who should wear the ornaments but the eager bride? Let's go. She runs to Kapila. Don't be sad, Kapila. We shall meet again, shan't we? In a low voice, so Devadatta cannot hear. It's my duty to go with Devadatta. But remember, I'm going with your body. Let that cheer you up. Goes back to Devadatta. Goodbye, Kapila. So she is happy that she is going with the body of Kapila. And there is just how many words? 6 words through which she implies that she herself is apprehensive of the fact that if the head is going to direct the body, then this body will very soon, I won't say no longer, will very soon follow the dictates of the body and become what Devadatta's body originally was. Which means that if without a direct experience of the body of Kapila before the transposition, if she was attracted to the body in this way, what will happen if she has a first-hand knowledge and experience of that body as the wife of the newly formed Devadatta with Kapila's body, and that body following the dictates of the Uttamanga alters itself to suit the Uttamanga, then her craving for Kapila's body, which is actually Devadatta's body now, which has been transformed by the dictates of the head of Kapila, will increase manifold. And if she has not been able to resist her desire for Kapila's body before the transposition, will she be able to resist it after the transformation of Kapila's body under the directives of the head of Devadatta? Think over it. Devadatta, goodbye. They go out laughing, rubbing against each other. Very, very close physical expression of conjugal desire. Kapila stands mute for a while. He doesn't know what to say. Then moves. Kapila, don't grieve. It's fate, Kapila. And Kapila? What? Me? Why am I Kapila? Goes out. So the road diverged. Kapila went into the forest and disappeared. He never saw Dharmapura again. In fact, he never felt the wind of any city again. As for Devadatta and Padmini, they returned to the city and plunged into the joy of married life. Padmini enters and sits. She is stitching clothes. Devadatta comes. He is carrying in his hands two large dolls, which could be played by two children. The dolls are dressed in a way which makes it impossible to decide their sex. Devadatta comes in quietly and stands behind Padmini. Hey! Oh! Really, Devadatta? You frightened me. The needle pricked me. Look, my fingers bleeding. Tut-tut. Is it really? Put it in my mouth. I'll suck it. No, thanks. I'll suck it myself. How pretty. Whose are these? Whose? Ours, of course. Guest is arriving soon. He must have playmates. But the guest won't be coming for months yet, silly. And I know he isn't, but you can't get dolls like this anytime you like. These are special dolls from the Ujjain fair, which means he did make it to the fair after all. They are lovely, hugs the dolls. They look almost alive. Such shining eyes, such delicate cheeks. Kisses them. Now sit down and tell me everything that happened at the fair. You wouldn't take me with you. How could I in your condition? I went only because you insisted. Just a second. Okay. I went only because you insisted you wanted to keep your word. But I'm glad I went. A very funny thing happened. There was a wrestling pit, and a wrestler from Gandhara was challenging people to fight him. And this body of Kapilas. Now this is the question between the Uttamanga directing everything. This is how Karnad is actually challenging that established notion that my head is Devadatta's, but my body, when it sees a Kustir Akra or Kustir Mat, cannot resist stepping into it. So what happened? I don't know what got into me. Before I'd even realized it, I had stripped, that is taken off my shirt, put on the pants given by his assistant, and jumped into the pit. Fondling the dolls. You didn't. You've never wrestled before. Didn't think of anything. I felt inspired. Now, what inspired his head? The body. Within a couple of minutes, I had pinned him to the ground. What would your father say if he heard of this? My few acquaintances there were quite amazed. Caressing his arm. That day in the gymnasium, you defeated the champion in a sword fight. Now this. Don't overdo it. A word of warning. People may start suspecting. Of course they won't. I was standing there bare-bodied and not a soul suspected. A friend even asked me if I'd learnt it from Kapila. You have, after all. They laugh. You know, I'd always thought one had to use one's brains while wrestling or fencing or swimming. But this body just doesn't wait for thoughts. It acts. Fabulous body. Fabulous brain. So these are the two things which he wanted in one and the same. And who is it? Fabulous Devadatta. Fabulous body, fabulous brain, fabulous Devadatta. My wish has been fulfilled. I have been running around all these days without even proper sleep, and yet I don't feel a bit tired. Come on, we'll have a picnic by the lake. I feel like a good long swim. In my condition, I didn't ask you to swim. You sit there and enjoy the scenery. Once our son's born, I'll, teach you to swim too. You go on about its being a son. What if it's a daughter? If she's a daughter like you, I'll teach the two of you together. Ready? He pulls her to him. Now, what about the picnic? Right. First things first. Padmini pause. Devadatta, yes? Why do you have to apply that sandal oil on your body? Now, that is something which Kapila used to do. Crisis of identity. I like it, I know, but what? I'm sorry, the sandal oil is used by Brahmins, so it's Devadatta's practice. But Padmini would prefer that very workaholic kind of smell which comes from the body of a man who undertakes very hard labor, that down to earth kind of a very masculine smell. That is what she is more interested in. I know, but what? Your body had that strong male smell before. I liked it. But I've been using sandal oil since I was a child. So she was also attracted by the scent or the smell which came from Kapila's body. I don't mean that, but when we came back from the temple of Kali, you used to smell so manly. You mean that unwashed, sweaty smell Kapila had? You liked that? It was just a suggestion. Come on, let's start. We'll be late. So these are very indicative. Devadatta is a typical patriarch. He wants a son. He goes on saying, I'm going to get a son. He wants to lead his life his way. What is Padmini doing? Sometimes she asks a question. What if it's a daughter? What are you going to do? So she's trying to find out how he reacts to it. She asks him not to use sandalwood oil. Sandalwood oil has a very strong smell if it's, pure. ওটা মানে আমার কাছে আছে ভীষণ দামি এবং দামি বলে ঘাবড়ে যাওয়ার কিছু নেই কারণ জাস্ট আঙুলের মাথায় একটুখানি নিয়ে কানের পাশে যদি লাগাও so it is going to last you say for a year or more and the whole day wherever you go people will get this lovely smell of sandalwood. It is so nice. So you can understand here is Devadatta smearing his whole body with sandalwood oil. So how strong that smell is going to be. It's a very refined and purified kind of a smell which suppresses the scent of the body, the natural smell of the body. Padmini's desire for that natural smell coming from Kapila's body is being suppressed by that sandalwood oil scent used by Devadatta. She does not like it. So she just makes a suggestion to Devadatta, who immediately dispels it. And she just controls herself. So this is how a woman knows how far to go, where to stop, and how to manipulate things which may not always be successful if she is to survive and thrive in a patriarchal setup which is very strong and very oppressive. So sometimes she has her way, sometimes she doesn't. And so she goes through this give and take kind of, always a trial and error kind of a system which helps her to carry on in this. So it's not always that she gets what she wants. Come on, let's start. We'll be late. They go out. A long silence. Now you have the dolls. Not a bad house, I would say. Could have been worse. I was a little worried. I mean, where will we land up? We've been manufactured. This is somewhat like, the autobiography of a pen. That I am a pen, I was made in a pen factory, and then I landed up in your own name, her pencil box, and here I have many other friends. There is a pencil, there is a rubber, etc., etc. And then the pen says, I was very worried as to where I would land up. I always thought that there would be a very naughty boy who would chew me up and throw me away. but I find I am taken a lot of care of. So this apprehension of even an inanimate thing regarding where it will land up and how it will be handled is the other side of looking at how you keep your things. I mean, if you keep a doll properly and well, then it's good. It shows good habit. But if you do not keep your dolls properly, if you manhandle them, it shows that you don't have a good habit. Why is the habit good or not good? That will depend partially on the genetic factor, but largely on how the child is brought up. If the child is taught to keep everything in proper shape, then it's one way. If the child is neglected, if the child is not paid much attention to, particularly by the mother, who is the first teacher of any child, then the child will not learn to maintain its own things properly, the do's and don'ts of a good way of life. And this is being reflected in the dolls and their conversation throughout the play. So the apprehension of the dolls is apparently dissipated because they find themselves in a good home. Could have been worse. I was a little worried. This is the least we deserve. Actually, we should have got a palace, a real palace, and a prince to play with, a real prince. How the children looked at us at the fair, how their eyes glowed because they all wanted us, how their mothers stared at us because they wanted the dolls for their children, but they could not afford them, how their mouths watered. Only those beastly men turned up their noses. Expensive, too expensive. This is the financier of the household, the father, who said, no, it's too expensive. We can't afford these dolls for our children. So the mothers who wanted the dolls for their children but could not afford to buy them just had to accept what the men told them. So you see, there are so many ways of making social comments in and through this play, which are being put across to the urban audience. Presuming to judge us. Who do they think they are? Only a prince would be worthy of us. We should be dusted every day, dressed in silk, seated on a cushioned shelf, given new clothes every week. If the doll maker had any sense, he'd never have sold us, at least not to this man. If he had any brains, he should never have given us to this man with his rough laborer's hands. Obviously, the hands are Kapila's, palms like wood, a grip like vice. My arms are still aching. He doesn't deserve us, the peasant. Devadatta comes running in, tosses the dolls in the air, catches them and kisses them. My dolls, your prince has arrived. So the time span is overcome. The prince has come. It is a son, and a son is always a prince. The doll one in agony. Brute, an absolute brute, beast, a complete beast, runs to the Bhagavata. The Bhagavata is always sitting at the back. Here, Bhagavata, sir, take these sweets. You must come to the feast tomorrow at our house. What's it for? Haven't you heard? I've got a son like a gem, a son like a rose. Yippee! He goes out dancing, some lesim steps, a long silence. Is that little Satan asleep yet? The child has grown up. Think so? Odd. It's killing me. Crying all day, making a mess every 15 minutes. Mess means, releasing itself. What have we come to? One should never trust God. One should never trust God. What have we come to? It's our fault. We should have been wary from the moment we saw that child in her dreams, Padmini's dreams. So the dolls can see dreams. Have they been given supernatural abilities? Let's see. We should have noticed she was bloating day by day. We should have suspected foul play then. It wasn't our fault. How could we know she was hiding these things inside her? How she was swelling day by day, week by week, as though someone were blowing air into her. How ugly she looked. Not to her husband, though. When they were alone, he would place his hand on her belly and say, is he kicking now? We should have been on our guard. We should. And then comes the son of a Satan, Shaitan Kish Bacha, this lump of flesh. He doesn't even have proper eyes or ears, but he gets all the attention. Devadatta and Padmini enter with this child, for which a wooden doll may be used. They walk across the stage, engrossed in talking to each other about the child, and go out. A spider's built-ins went on my shoulders. Yesterday, a mouse nibbled at my toe, so the time is passing. The other day, a cockroach ate my left eye. 6 months, and not a soul has come near us. 6 months, and not a hand has touched us. Echoes of murder in the cathedral. 6 months, and we reach this state. What will happen in a year's time? 7 years have passed, and we have spent our life in one way. 7 years have passed, and we have got accustomed to it, Thomas Becket, says the chorus. So that is being echoed over here. And you must remember, if you have seen the documentary Girish Karnad by K.M. Chaitanya, that he was very fond of authors like Eugene O'Neill, T.S. Eliot, W.H. Auden, and he used to sketch their pictures and send it to the author to be signed and returned. T.S. Eliot signed it and returned it. He had kept it with a lot of care. It was Eugene O'Neill who told him that don't run after people's signatures. Try to make yourself such that people will want your signatures, and that's it. So that was a digression. Anyway, so that's a repetition of the echoes of T.S. Eliot and Girish Karnad. That is what I was talking about. And these knowledge, these pieces of experience, they just stay on, and inadvertently they begin to come out. Padmini and Devadatta, listen, yes, mustn't say no, at least this time. To what? We'll take him to the lake. In this cold? What if it's cold? He's older. There's no need to mollycoddle him. I grew up running around in heat and cold and rain, and nothing happened to me. I'm all right. No, it's unnecessary trouble for everyone. So the man refuses. The woman makes an appeal to the man, typical patriarchal model, and the man says no. The woman does not like it, but is compelled to accept it. But desire remains. What do you mean? What do you mean trouble? What happened to you these days? You sit at home all day, never go out. You've forgotten all your swimming and sports. I'm a Brahmin, Mini. My duty? I've heard all that. It was fun the first few days because it was new. What was new? This body or this combination? All that muscle and strength. But how long can one go on like that? I have the family tradition to maintain. The daily reading, writing, and studies. Padmini doesn't like all that. Don't know. Now look here, Padmini. Puts his hand round her shoulder. She suddenly shudders. Why? What happened? Nothing. I don't know why. I suddenly had flesh because this body has responded to Devadatta's head and its dictates and has become like the original body of Devadatta. And Padmini, in her private life, is not interested in that body. Devadatta's was the one which he possessed before the transposition. Do you know where I've kept the copy of Dharma Sindhu? I've been looking for it. He understands her withdrawal. He pretends not to notice it. I think I saw it on the shelf. Must be there. That goes to doll 1, moves it aside, and picks up the book. Doll 1 shudders, because this again is also a new body compared to the one which had brought the doll home. Doll 2. Why? What happened? He touched me. And yes, his palms. They were tough when he first brought us here, like the laborers. But now they are soft, sickly soft, like a young girl's. So now you see from the conversation of the dolls, why Padmini is not interested in Devadatta's body because his body is too effeminate to attract Padmini, whose name itself is a signifier of all those qualities mentioned in the Art of Life texts. I know, I've noticed something too. What? His stomach, it was so tight and muscular. Now, I know it's loose. Do you think it will swell up too? They laugh, holding its hand in front of its to suggest a certain belly. It will swell a little, holding its hand a little farther in front, then more, even further, more, and more, until if it's a woman, there'll be a child, and if it's a man's, bang! They roll with laughter. And he comes in with the child. She sings a lullaby. What does it mean? If it is a woman, then there's going to be a baby because of the lover do-little kind of a relationship which Padmini and the new body of Devadatta have had. But if it is a man's body, which it is, then Devadatta is going to understand the discord, the changing body of his, which is actually Kapila's, and Padmini's relationship with it. A discord is gradually being struck up, and that gradual heightening discord will have to be kept inside himself. He'll have to pretend not to notice it, and therefore his belly is going to swell and swell, and the swelling belly image has always been used in folk tales to represent something which cannot be told. That nabola kotha, pet phule jawa, is a typical commonality still used. That is the notion. Otherwise, pet phule phule dum kore phete jabe. So this is a common folk notion that has been embedded over here. Here comes a rider. From what land does he come? On his head is a turban with long pearly tail. Round his neck a garland of virgin white jasmines, Jui Puler Mala. In his fist a sword with a diamond-studded hilt. The white-clad rider rides a white charger, spreads its tossing mane against the western sky. Spreads its mane like breakers against the western sky. So it's a reminder of Hayavadana's father and his owner, and that myth-like story, and that entire notion of a hero on a stallion. All these are being repeated. That is the desire for something which one usually cannot grasp in real life. That desire remains in all of us. Sleep now, my baby, and see smiling dreams. There he comes. Here he is. From which land has he come? But why are the gems on his chest red? Oh, so why are they red? What shine in his open eyes? Pebbles, oh pebbles. Why is his young body cold, oh so cold? The white horse gallops across his streams and fields. To what land does he gallop? Nowhere, oh nowhere. Oh, the entire ocean. His Rajkumar is so futile because there is death and bloodshed implied in it. Eyes are lifeless like pebbles. The garland of white jasmines is actually red. So this very notion implies a futility in the pursuit of that wish, that dream, that desire. Halfway through the lullaby, Devadatta comes in and sits by Padmini's side, reading. They don't look at each other. At the end of the lullaby, they fall asleep. Where? Behind her eyelids, she is dreaming. I don't see anything. It's still hazy, hasn't started yet. You see how? Yes, yes. They stare at her. A man, but not her husband. No, someone else. Is this the one who came last night? Yes, the same. I couldn't see his face then. And now, very nice, rough, like a laborer's. He's got a nice body. Looks soft. Who do you think it is? It's fading. Remember the face? It's fading. Oh, it's gone. You won't even remember it tomorrow. Padmini and Devadatta sit up. Now then, the dolls have never seen Kapila. So the face is unknown to them. But you understand that this rough face with a very strong yet soft body is none other than Kapila. What is Padmini doing? And this is how Padmini's dream is being brought on stage to the audience. There is no other option. If this was film, there would have been technical devices to bring it out. But on stage, this is a very nice technique. And the dolls are discussing Padmini's dream. So the actor who's playing Padmini just lies down and the dolls have their conversation in a hushed voice. And you know that being a witness to the change in the body of Kapila that has come over time due to the dictate of the head of Devadatta, obviously, very naturally, Padmini in the back of her mind must be wondering whether the same thing has been happening to Devadatta, which is with Kapila's head. And that subconscious, unconscious, whatever it may be, even conscious idea comes to the surface in her dream, which the dolls are interpreting for the audience. What a lovely technique of communicating Padmini's psychological state or processes at this time. Are you ill? Why? You were moaning in your sleep last night. Was I? Aren't you feeling well? Oh, me? I'm fine. Gets up energetically to show how he feels. Suddenly grabs his shoulders with a groan. What's wrong? Tell me. Nothing. I went to the gymnasium yesterday morning, then went swimming. To the gymnasium? After all these years? Why? Just felt like it, that's all. Go on about it. He wants to get back Leela's body. He knows he has to get back Padmini's attention. Are you going again today? No, I'm not. And there's no need to laugh. I know I've made a fool of myself by going there. Again, goes out. Long pause. Padmini soliloquizes. What are you afraid of, Devadatta? What does it matter that you are going soft again? That you are losing your muscles? I'm not going to be stupid again. Kapila's gone out of my life. She is frantically attempting to remain a pativrata forever. I won't let him come back again. Whom is she saying this to? To the absent Devadatta or to herself? What will he be doing now? That is the other self in Padmini, who is that desiring woman. And this self, Pativrata, who is to suppress that desiring woman. So I am not going to make the same mistake again. I am trying to control my desires. Let's see whether she will succeed. Where could he be? Could his body be fair still and his face dark? Devadatta changes. Kapila changes. And me? What is going to happen to me? Closes her eyes. That's it, because the dolls are at it. Thank you. Now for the attendance, the first one which